Classroom of the Elite is an anime light novel adaptation that started airing in the summer of 2017. And after 7 years, it's finally finished its 3rd season. And just like most people, I have been waiting patiently for each new episode and season release. No, I haven't. I binged this show, and within 4 days, I was already caught up and waiting for the finale of season 3 with everyone. Because this show just keeps getting better and better. I dare call this show peak. Almost. It's not there yet. I'll explain. So if you don't know what this show is, let me break it down. You can skip to the next section if you're familiar with the show. In Japan, there's this prestigious school where school life is run through a point system. You can earn points through various special exams the school puts on to test the students. And with your points, you can buy anything and advance your class in the standings. You see, this school is more of a competition than a learning institute. The top graduating class will be set for life. So naturally, this creates competition between the different classes, and the students start to create almost political groups, with the students of the highest caliber as leaders. And each class tries to either hold their position in the ranks or knock down another team through all types of psychological and suspenseful battles. And the show details our protagonist Ayanokoji's life at school, who is very, very smart. But that makes it sound simple and easy, when it's really not. When everyone is trying to deduce what your real intentions are and exploit you for their personal gain, it turns what could have been a slice of life to a suspense-filled drama without breaks. And RMC, he's a defect compared to the other students. Alright, I've yapped enough. Now before I start praising or criticizing, let me just say I have not read the light novel, and I am going off anime only. Alright, I don't want to start a war, so to speak. That'll come up later. Characters. Now let me be blunt. If you're not this guy, Ayanokoji, you're not important. You may get your chance in the spotlight for a few episodes, but no one ever stays relevant long enough to be considered a main character. And usually that would be a bad thing. If you're constantly throwing around characters, the viewer might get overwhelmed, which some do, but the show handles it extremely well. The show never introduces any characters without giving them proper characterization. And if a character is set to play a bigger role later in the story, they'll slowly make them more and more relevant until you're already familiar with the character through foreshadowing or straight interactions with them. And I think this is something that the show should be praised for. Because handling, I don't know, let's say at this point, 20 plus characters, and keeping them all decently relevant isn't something done well easily. Some people complain because they can't remember all the names, but I'd chalk that up to it just being Japanese. Cause remember, we're not the main audience. And having a lot of characters makes sense for this type of show. Because what all these other anime that deal with high schools don't realize is that there are other classes. Just because the main character is in one doesn't mean that all other school life stops. And speaking of the main character, let's talk about the man himself, Ayanokoji Kiyotaka. I'm sure if you're in the anime community, you've definitely heard of this guy cause oh my gosh is he influential. While I was watching this show, I actually gave him a nickname, and every time he would do something, let's say, above average, I would shout, "That's my glorious king," like LeBron Glazers. Because I have seen so many people glaze this guy. The most popular being people making videos and the comments agreeing with the videos on how to be like Ayanokoji. And by far the funniest thing I found is this one. While I was doing research for this video, I found out that the Reddit for this show actually has a rule against Ayanokoji posting. And pretty much what that means is you can't just post saying that you're Ayanokoji, for real. But the reason people idolize him so much is because, for lack of a less cringe word, he's a Sigma. I can't love no bitch 'cause I want money. He's only focused on himself and his goals. He's super smart and knows a lot about a variety of topics. He doesn't talk to people unless he has to. And just for fun, he doesn't go after girls, he attracts them. I can't love no bitch 'cause I want money. The best words to describe his personality would be enigmatic, aloof, and intelligent. And yes, ChatGPT came up with that. And his character is done well. Not as good as it could be, but good enough. After finishing season 3, I can see some cracks in him. It seems like his edgelord personality is a little exaggerated and mishandled, but I'll talk about that later. A character like this really only shines when they're cooking up some plan or interacting with others, because hearing their insights and inner thoughts on a situation is what makes them so fun to watch. And when Ayanokoji gets to scheming, he schemes all over the place. My favorite parts of the show is when his master plan just falls together and works. when you can see the result of all the mind games and efforts he's made. But enough about him, let's quickly talk about the other characters. You see, there's not much point going into depth on the others because they sub out who's most relevant and who's not. So I'll talk about who I think are the best done characters. So on the girl side, I think the best done characters are Arisu and Kei. I butchered that name. With a special mention to Kushida. And on the boy side, there are none, because this show does the guys so dirty. If you're not some sort of leader or otherwise special case, your character is insufferable. Like, the guys are either perverts, dumb idiots, or a mixture of both. So no guys get to be mentioned here today. But Kei Karuizawa. I felt forced to mention her because of not only how much Ayanokoji worked on her, but how much the show worked on her. Her personality is the normal teenage girl getup. You know, she cares about how popular she is and gets crushes on boys. She's not meant to be involved with the intelligent psychological battles of the school's politics, and that's what makes her so good. Because she's not on her guard, she's the perfect character to have psychological tricks done to her and through her. And the author knows that. Because of this, we're shown the very detailed development from her being a character unaffected by the psychological side into one who's completely influenced by it. And this creates interactions that make the magic of this show. I'm no misogynist, really? But Ayanokoji calling her a tool really was the best definition of her inside and outside of the show. So Kei gets an A-. I really wanted it to rhyme. Iris Sakayanagi. So far, she's only been relevant in season 3, but I think season 3 was the best yet, so they're doing something right. She's one of the leaders of Class A, the top class. And out of all of the class leaders, I think she's the best. And the reason I think this is because she just actually plays the game, unlike everyone else. Cause this guy just brute forces what he wants, this girl is doing everything with the power of friendship, and this guy? I don't even know what he was doing. The same magic that can be found in Ayanokoji can be found in Arisu. Because she's playing the psychological games, she's doing the battles of smarts. Unlike the other leaders, when she doesn't like something, she'll get rid of it in the same descriptive and planned way that Ayanokoji does. And it adds a level of interesting diversity when someone is using the same masterminding schemes as the MC. So Aris gets an A. And a special mention to Kushida. To quickly describe her, she's your typical bubbly girl, but she has a dark side, which is a complete opposite and malicious personality. And unfortunately, she falls victim to what I've dubbed the Season 1 curse. I feel like her character is a little less solid because of her importance in Season 1. And that sucks because I really think her character can be used in a much better way than they do. Also, extremely unpopular opinion, but I think she's best girl. What? Come on. I just think her dark side is hot. Now that I've filled you in enough, I can actually start talking about the plot, arcs, and storylines. Each arc/event is typically driven by either a special test that the school gives or a typical high school event. And it's through those exams that the characters get into drama. The special events that they put on are very creative and fit with the theme that the show fronts. I won't lie and say that every event is amazing. There are some stinkers, but the ones that are good are really good. I'll highlight this one, the class poll in season 3. So basically what's going on is that there's a vote that the class has to take, and the class will change depending on that vote. I'm avoiding spoilers the best I can. But what makes this one so good is that you can see the psychological side being altered in real time. You can see the control demonstrated by certain characters and see what the results of their actions bring. Some people take risks to build or break others to gain control of even one person's mind. And at the end, it still leaves a suspenseful ending across not just the main character's class, but the other classes as well. Oh, and they make sure to explain what happened so that you're not confused. Now that's just one example. There are still tons of other events that take the same concept and apply it to their specific situation. And this is the main drive of the show. And you just want to see how it all plays out and who comes out on top. But even though that's the driving force of the show, the anime doesn't neglect its other parts. So many characters have great development and change throughout the show. Even one character getting a whole ending dedicated to her and how she's changed. And remember, there's a lot of characters to keep track of, so don't be surprised at how often characters are changing. The show moves at a pace that allows you to enjoy each arc before it gets too stale, at least if you ignore the fact that they're cutting content. And the author always has ideas to mix it up and further broaden what the anime can do. And the animation and music are just chef's kiss. This studio, Lerche, has made some other big titles you might know, like Assassination Classroom or Toilet Bound Hanako-kun. And just like those anime, the animation here has defined itself with its own unique style. The animation really captures the vibrant style the original author and illustrator were going for. It's solid everywhere except for in Season 2. Season 2 had a few shading problems, but to bring you back, there was this one battle where they utilized a unique blackout approach, which hit hard. Yes, that was a pun. For the music, I've personally added each opening and one of the endings to my playlist. They keep bringing in Zach, who I really like. I think in terms of general music, like their soundtrack, they got some cool stuff. The piano they play at the start of each episode sets the vibe for the show well. And because it's a drama show, they raise the intensity of the scenes with the appropriate music. So that way, word exchanges evoke more feeling. But they already do that, so they're just kind of raising the bar. Also, a lot of these tracks I could see myself using for videos, so they get an A for sound design. Okay, I get it, this show has a lot of good things, but you said it's not peak, so like, what? You're right, I've lost the plot of this video. Let's get back on track. There are a few reasons why Classroom of the Elite isn't fully elite. Everything in it is well done. I just went to Dunkin' Donuts, stole their glazer, and used it on my script up until now. So what's the issue? Well, it's actually in the heart of the anime, the psychological side. But it's not the entire psychological side. In fact, it's just one part of it. But it's the biggest part of it. Internal dialogue. You know, a lot of people got into this show because of how intense and complex the drama was and how well they used the psychology and smarts in the show. Each episode kept you wanting more and more, and this was all in Season 1. But here's the thing, what you were watching was a lie. In fact, it was such a lie that just about everything you just watched wouldn't matter. Dubbed what I like to call the Season 1 curse. Usually, in the first episodes or first season, the story is trying to establish itself, figure out what direction it wants to go in. And Classroom of the Elite was doing exactly that. But if you compare the anime's direction in Season 1 versus Season 3 or even 2, they aren't similar. In Season 1, the anime had a more rounded class versus class approach, and some of these interactions and events really mimic that. Such as when Class A was making fun of Class D for not being elegant enough, or even the multiple times when Ayanokoji had to bail out his classmates. The entire Summer Island exam gave off this vibe. There was a much bigger emphasis on the classes and not the individuals. Freaking Suzune was considered a main character at the time. But after this season, the show stops with the class versus class theme. The anime becomes more focused on specific characters in each of the classes rather than the entire class as a whole. None of the events that happen in Season 1, or even some of the characters for that matter, get any relevance in the later seasons. This girl Sakura, who had a big event happen with her, has become totally irrelevant. I don't think it's crazy to say that she's had a total of 8 lines since Season 1. Not only that, but her entire event was never talked about again and didn't influence anything in the show. It seems the author realized his story was going in a kind of lackluster direction, because most people will tell you that Season 1 was the least interesting out of the batch. After realizing this, he had not a complete 180 turn, but a 90-degree turn at most. And you can pinpoint the exact moment when this happens. The end of Season 1, when Ayanokoji gives his famous monologue. If you compare what happened before and after this monologue, it's like night and day. And this is adapted from a light novel, mind you. So when the anime adaptation got to this point, they had to step back and pivot. They had to stop building characters in the way they were and rewire them almost. Like I said, I feel Best Girl Kushida isn't done as well because of how important she was in Season 1. She didn't transfer over to Season 2 as well. The anime stopped with unnecessary fan service, which I was cool with them getting rid of. But, you know, you don't usually just decide one day, no more fan service, pack it up, fire the artist. Ayanokoji's personality stops being emphasized as much. He starts to feel a little bit robotic, and that leads to by far their biggest blunder: the halting of his internal dialogue. If you compare how many moments you hear Ayanokoji talk to himself in Season 1 versus the others, Season 1 just wins. And the thing is, that was probably most people's favorite part. Psychology is all about the human mind, and we don't even get to hear the mind of our protagonist. The biggest factor in immersion is just gone. Sometimes it feels like Ayanokoji is just an AI who moves to the command the author writes. And how long is that fun to watch for? Earlier I called up the light novel community and said that I don't want to start a war, because the light novel community hates the anime adaptation. People who started out reading it hate it, people who went from watching to reading start hating it, and they all cite the biggest reason being the lack of an inner monologue. And after they pointed it out to me, I could reason with that sentiment. Light novel readers say that Ayanokoji's personality is made more relevant and that his thoughts are intricate and fun to hear, or I guess read in their case. But that got me thinking. I started to think about moments that I thought could have been better. It made me want to reread and hear what my glorious king Ayanokoji was thinking. I also thought about other psychological anime I had watched. Think of Death Note. It was so popular and so well liked because we got to hear Light's thoughts. But in the second half, when they sped up the pace, everyone started hating the show. And just like Death Note, the robotic Ayanokoji we have now can get very boring at times. Luckily for Classroom of the Elite, most people don't seem to care because everything else in the anime is so good. But how long is that going to last? How much longer until people start realizing this and get bored with the show? Because the show is about Ayanokoji's life at school and how he triumphs through the challenges set in front of him. What good is it if we can't even hear how he's feeling about it? So here's my message to the anime side of Classroom of the Elite. You're in such a great position. You have a chance to make this show peak, but you gotta fix some things. Slow down and give us more insight on what's going on. You were able to successfully pivot once, albeit with a few minor issues, so this time should be a piece of cake. Continue to improve all your other factors, but don't neglect the center of the show. I really want to see you succeed. And also, can we talk about this? Why are so many of your figures like ecchi? I really like this anime, so I wanted a figure, but so many of them would get my parents to kick me out of the house. Like, all the figures for the girls are either ecchi or kei. And also, why aren't there like any Ayanokoji figures? I'm pretty sure he's the character everyone would want. I wanted one, but you don't seem to want to do that. I don't know, this video is getting pretty long. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and please comment. I'm genuinely interested to hear people's opinions on the anime. I'm out.